And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the city of the Immaculata. Brian here, joined again, graced with the presence of my lovely wife, Katie. Um, so, this was something I had planned to do about a month ago at this point, and then the whole
No,
craziness of our house situation sort of got in the way of doing this. But the idea of this is to review the books that we are reading at any given time. I guess just a little bit of quick background on it. When Katie and I first got married, we had a Catholic couple that we were friends with, and I kind of took them for the model of just some cool things that they did. And one of the cool things that they did was they read aloud to each other. So for gosh, for years now, Katie and I have read um, books to each other, and that kind of started off. um I don't know if you
Dracula.
remember. No, it actually started way back when our first house. And we didn't really like have any idea what to read to each other, so of course I picked up some like theological books, and we never finished any of them. I remember we were doing even like Pope Benedict XVI's infancy narratives. Remember we tried to read that one,
I don't remember. I've like
Advent.
blocked this out, I guess.
But we didn't finish it. So like years in, we're like, well, maybe we should just like read novels to each other, right? Just some like fun novels, keep it kind of simple. So that's what we did. And we've been, I mean, it's kind of hit or miss. We did
It
Dracula.
can
That was
take
a
us a
good
really
one.
long time to finish. And
Yeah.
I think part of the intention with this effort is maybe some accountability, like to help us get books finished in a
Mhm.
decent amount of time.
Yeah, and I mean, I enjoy doing it. We put down, any devices that we might have or anything like that, and we just read to one another. It's just a nice thing. So we thought this would be a fun thing to do, to share these books that we're reading with each other. Um, we're going to do some other ones in the future, and I wanted to open it up to you guys. If anybody, enjoys reading novels, uh, maybe we could turn this into like a book group kind of thing. We can maybe kind of come up with some ideas for that later on in the future. Katie and I literally were just bouncing the idea off of each other a little while ago, so we don't necessarily have that worked out yet. But if any of you are interested, my email is going to be in the description below. Also, my Twitter is on there, or leave a comment, whatever you like. And you can join us in the future. Just to let you know, we have picked out for next month, we are going to read, we've started reading, but for next month, we're going to review Flannery O'Connor's The Violent Bear It Away. This is my first time spending any time at all reading Flannery O'Connor. Honestly, I'm kind of loving it so far, though I wouldn't say there's necessarily, hasn't gotten to a plot per se. It's just kind of
It's
interesting
interesting.
characters.
It's interesting. Yeah, interesting characters.
So I can't say necessarily if it's going to be a plot driven book, but it's definitely a character driven book. So if you guys like Flannery O'Connor, that's going to be our next one. In the future, we're open to any suggestions of novels that you guys. We're going to try to keep it like Catholic themed, Catholic ideas. One that Katie had brought in was, even though it's not necessarily a novel, it is an autobiography. It's The Long Loneliness. Okay, it's kind of got a gloss
Dorothy Day.
cover. There, it's Dorothy Day, Servant of God. We're going to read that possibly for a future one. I also have Autobiography of a Hunted Priest by Father John Gerard, Jesuit. This is his time that he spent in England when Catholicism was illegal. So that's an interesting read. Probably I haven't actually read it yet. Another one is Black Elk Speaks. He too is another gloss cover. He too is a servant of God. Black Elk, Nicholas Black Elk, and this is mostly about his earlier life, before his conversion, when he was still just a Lakota holy man. So that's going to be a fun one. Looks like someone's joined there. Hello to you, Mouthwash. Great name. So anyways, without further ado, we're going to start with the beer that Katie has picked out for us tonight. Katie, tell us about your beer.
It's we call it the Banshee Red or the Screamin' Ginger.
By we, you mean the
brewery that I work at.
Which, by the way, guys, my wife is
school librarian and a brewery.
She's a brewery master, right? So she can it, she can pour it, she can even drink it.
The best at that. It's a balanced Irish style red.
It is live, by the way. Yes.
A moderate amount of kilned malts and roasted barley. Coming in at a modest 5.7 ABV. I did not bring home. We have one that's 11.5 right now. I did not bring that.
It's got kind of a sweet smell to it.
So. Someone was drinking it and they said it tasted like Fiji apples to them. And ever since then, when I sip it, I taste apples. And I really like it.
That's a good beer. I haven't tasted beer in about a year now. I haven't been able to really drink it that much. But so that's our idea. If you guys are interested, we watch this later and you're interested in joining like a book group kind of thing. We were thinking, we could do like a roundtable live or something like that. We've all read it. We can discuss the book. For sure, I would say for sure we're going to do it next month, the Flannery O'Conor. But after that, I'm open to ideas. I've got some other ideas for the future. There's, what did I call that book? It was Lord of the World. That's by Father Benson. It's recommended by Pope Francis and Pope Benedict XVI as a read. So it's written in like turn of the century, 1907, I think was the date. And it's like a dystopian futurist novel about the Antichrist and the end of the world. So that might be an interesting one. But anyways, without further ado for that, now that you've been introduced to the beer, Graham Greene and The Power and the Glory. So this is what we read. This is what we read for this month. Graham Greene's The Power and the Glory. I would say first and foremost, this is the first time that I've done anything like this, and I can't say I'm necessarily skilled at holding my tongue about spoilers. So
you might not even have to read the book.
So I guess we should agree to not give the ending away, right? We should at least agree to that.
Sure.
I will try to keep my tongue for some of the like real details about what takes place in the novel. So in case you want to read it, we don't completely just give it away. But again, I'm new at this, so if I like bomb and Katie as well.
If you looked at this cover and you said that you want to read it so bad, maybe just don't watch this until after you've read it. Yeah.
So, but we're going to do our best, and I think later I can actually probably. What I'll do is I'll go back and I'll timestamp. So if there's actually is a spoiler, I'll timestamp that. Hey, this is a spoiler to skip. So Graham Greene, English novelist. I don't know much about him. What I do know is that he was a convert to Catholicism, and he had a little bit of a troubled history with the faith. I think he actually died a Catholic. But this novel was written during the height of his conversion period, and it's very steeped in a sort of Catholic world. The context of the story is it's set in Mexico. Graham himself had spent some time in Mexico in the 1930s, and I originally thought that this novel was set during the Cristeros Rebellion. So if any of you guys are familiar with that, it's the let's see, I guess the 19-teens, there was a revolution in Mexico, anti-Catholic, anti-clerical, Marxist government takes over Mexico. They end up expelling all of the priests, and in time, I'm going to have to plug that in a minute. In time, there was the rebellion. So peasants rose up in rebellion in Mexico. They call them the Cristeros, these Mexican peasants, and they were for several years fighting with the Mexican government. I thought that's when this story actually taken place. It turns out it's not. And this is one of the, like, I think kind of interesting things about the story is that it's a unique little period of Mexican history. Um, for people that know this time of Mexico, they're probably familiar with the Cristeros Rebellion. Um, some of you might be familiar with the movie several years ago. It was called For Greater Glory. What's his name? Andy Garcia was in that movie. It was a good movie. Um, what is his name? The guy that he plays the older priest in the movie. Um, he was Lawrence in Lawrence of Arabia. His name is leaving me. Is it Peter O'Toole? I think it's Peter O'Toole. Anyways, he was an older actor by the time that this story came out. He plays the martyred priest in the movie. So I thought this story was set during that. It turns out it's not. So the Cristeros Rebellion comes to an end. Catholic priests are allowed back in Mexico, except for one province. I think they're provinces in Mexico. Is that right?
You would know better than I do.
One province where the priests were still being persecuted, Tabasco. And that's where this story is set. And it's in the 1930s. So it's after the Cristeros Rebellion. All of that, the rebellion's over, but the Mexican government, especially in this particular province, are still persecuting the priests. There's no priests left, except for our protagonist.
Well, and Father Jose.
Yes.
Or Padre Jose.
Yes. So I'm gonna let Katie begin. You kind of give your take on the story. I'll be back in 1 second. I'm gonna plug in, but just give your take on what you think.
Okay. So for reading it aloud to each other, there were times where I found it hard to keep track of who was talking. If Brian was reading and I was not looking at the page, because he doesn't necessarily say he said, she said, back and forth. So you really have to be focused to follow the dialogue at times. The main character, I was disappointed in him, but then I felt for him, for his struggle. And
you never actually get his name. He's just referred to.
I was just trying to think of it.
He's just referred to as the whiskey priest. He is the whiskey priest. So that gives you an idea. That is his struggle. His name amongst the people is the whiskey priest. That's all they refer to him as, and that's all the novel refers to him as.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, no, that's okay. So yeah, I both was kind of like disappointed and disgusted, but then I was also kind of like if I was in a similar situation, I probably would have fallen in the same ways or worse.
Disappointed in what he had done.
What he had done and some of his choices that he made in the book.
Like real time or some of those things they were talking about from his past?
I think the real time. Like I want to say there was at least once where someone was asking for confession and he was not willing.
So he's moving around the province and he's on. So this, I assume that the character here, even though this is actually a real historical photograph of a soldier in the 1920s, the character that's the antagonist is a lieutenant, I think, colonel maybe. Anyways, is a military. It's not a general, but he's moving around hunting the priest, trying to find him. They know he's in the area, and
they're also hunting a person who legit is the
American criminal.
The American criminal, yeah.
There's an American criminal. I don't think you ever get his name either.
What did he do? Was he a bank robber? Is that what he was?
And I think he actually killed somebody. Yeah.
Yeah.
And these soldiers. I mean, in this does it say here? The one following him, the one chasing him, was quite ruthless. I guess it wouldn't be a spoiler to say that every time he comes into a community, if he knew that the priest had been there, he takes one of the villagers with him and executes a villager for not giving over the priest.
So the priest may have been there 24 hours before and said mass and heard confessions, baptisms, etc. And then he leaves and the soldier shows up looking for him and they won't tell him what direction the priest went in, whatever. And he's like, okay, fine. One of you will die.
So I guess what is that kind of your take on the story?
It was a book reading aloud to each other. It was a challenge for me at time to follow the dialogue. Yeah.
Well, my take on it overall, I thought it was a very gritty, realistic novel. I appreciate the fact that Graham Greene doesn't. I think one of the challenges with, I can't say this is necessarily a Catholic thing, but Christian media in general tends to be very whitewashed and like cleansed and sanitized. And I think that sometimes makes it not relevant for people that are sort of living in the trenches of life. And there's none of that in this story. This story is right in um, the filth of life in many ways. We're dealing with very flawed characters, a very serious time. So it's not your like pop Christian rock equivalent of like a Christian novel. You've got even your main protagonist, and that's one of the things I think that really stands out to me about this is, like Katie was saying, our hero in this book, I wouldn't say he's an anti-hero. He's just a very, very flawed man. An anti-hero is like a Batman or like a vigilante or something like that. This priest, the whiskey priest, he's made some like very serious mistakes in his life. And the thing that I personally like about it, and I think Greene probably did this on purpose, was every single thing that the Mexican government, that the Marxists, the atheists hated about priests, everything that the Marxists were telling the people that the priests were, right? They were corrupt. They were womenizers. They were boozers. They were hypocrites. This whiskey priest was all of those things. He was all of those things, right? But at the same time, he was actually very heroic in a lot of ways. I mean, at the very
well, I think it was neat throughout the novel. You like see him fall, but then you also see him get back up and do something where he's risking his life to bring graces to the people of his flock, and so that's a cool.
And the whole time he's very aware of what a sick man he is, right? And he's convinced he's going to hell, actually.
Yeah.
And he's like concerned about these people that he, and in some ways he's like, why do they keep turning to me? Because that's the other thing too. The villagers they know he's the priest, and the villagers don't like turn him in.
Yeah, no, they like kneel and they kiss his hand, and
they're like, Father, hear our confessions. Father, can you say mass for us?
Well, and that's one of the conflicts in the book too, is given that there aren't any other priests around, he's knowing that he needs to go to confession, but he can't. There's no one to confess to. So that's just this ongoing internal conflict.
And like right at the very beginning of the story, it's kind of it's a wonderful setup. So the very beginning of the story, there's a cargo ship, boat, whatever. It's docked. It's getting ready to leave the country. And in the village from where the ship is docked, there's a dentist. And the dentist is like sitting outside. I think it's been a little over a month since we finished the story, and longer than that since we started the story. But he's like sitting outside, and a stranger approaches him, or somehow he ends up talking to this stranger. And the stranger is letting the dentist know, hey, I'm going to be on that ship. I'm going to get on that ship, and I'm getting out of the country. And then a peasant comes up to the stranger is a doctor, remember? And the dentist is talking to this doctor. We don't hear who he is, and the doctor is going to go on the ship, and then he's going to leave the country. And then this young peasant boy or girl, I can't remember, comes up to the boy. It was a boy
and his mother.
The young peasant boy comes up to the doctor and says, "Hey, my mother's sick and she's dying. Could you come see her?" And you could see the doctor. He's looking at the ship. It's his chance to leave, and the doctor says, "Yes, I'll go see her." And as he's leaving with the young boy, the dentist says, "The mother is dying. Why just need a doctor? Like it's a waste." And the doctor says to the dentist, "Well, I'm the kind of doctor that this is when she most needs me." And that's when you're introduced to the fact that this is the priest that these people are looking for. So, and there's several chances for him to escape
Mm-hmm.
in the story that he doesn't actually leave. So, I would
Well,
say,
and one time he actually,
yeah, no, yeah, yeah. So I would say it's a story of high story of redemption for as about a fallen as a person can fall in some ways, and but keeping it in a very like gritty, realistic way. Like like he redeems himself, but it's still a very sick man. I mean, he's constant. I mean, so like at one time he was going to. Again, this is not necessarily a spoiler. At one time he's going to say mass, but he wants to make sure that he has enough wine for himself to drink. Remember that he was going to say mass, but he was like, okay, there's enough for me to say mass, but I need to have enough wine that I'm not going to consecrate because he's an alcoholic. And that's part of what he's looking for through half of the story. He's looking for his next booze.
And at one point, is he drinking with the officer that's after him, and the officer doesn't realize it's him?
It was somebody like that. I don't know if it was the exact officer, but it was somebody that worked for the officer or something like that. Yeah.
And they were drinking together.
Yeah. And that's when he first gets, yeah. So that's without giving away too much of the story there. Would you say, Katie, let's do 1 out of 4 Steins. How many Steins would you give it?
Well, I'm not gonna give Steins to the book.
Give Steins to the book. I mean, it's books and beer. So, well, 1 out of 4 Steins for your beer.
How beer is 4 Steins, maybe even 5 off the scale. Wow. It's my favorite that we have right now.
Okay. How many Steins would you give the book as an equivalent to beer? I
would give it, if it's up to 4.
Yeah, you can even do halves if you want.
I would do like 3.5 stars. Stars, not Stein.
Okay.
It's although I guess he's a whiskey, so we give it Stein.
I think that's fair. 3.5.
Should we go with Flask?
I mean, the only there are times where it drags a little bit, where he could have moved the story on a little bit faster, but I think that's a small. And I'm not just giving it that high of a review just because I think it actually is worthy of that higher review. The only thing I would say as a criticism is that there are times where he stalls a little bit in the narrative. But besides that,
part of me wonders if that's like to help you feel like stuck, like the priest is feeling stuck.
Yeah, it could be a device. Yeah. But I mean, as far as an introduction to Graham Greene, I would say full recommendation. Would you? Yeah. Full recommendation for this one. Written? He's got 3 that I think falls within his trilogy of Catholic stories, but he's fairly prolific writer from what I understand, but not all of them would fall within this realm of Catholic literature, which, we could, depending on how long this goes on, we could circle back around to one of his novels in the future. But yeah, this was ideal for us. I mean, it's not too long. It was, just over 200 pages. So ideal for this kind of thing. Again, we're going to do The Violent Buried Away next month. So tune back in for that. And if you'd like to, you're more than welcome to join. We would suggest having a good beer when we do it next month. So keep an eye out for that. I'll send out some dates in the future. But again, if you're interested, reach out to me and we'll work on some dates. So anyways, anything else to add for that, Katie?
Peace be with you, mouthwash.
All right. You guys take care. Yep, that's it. Take care.